In this video, I will talk about the theories of international politics, also about the levels of analysis that we use in international politics, and a little bit about the different power poles that could exist. So, first of all, let's go with the two most important uh, theories that exist, the two classical approaches to international relations. So we talk about the idealism and we talk about the realism. Both approaches they agree on the same thing. International politics is a chaos. International politics is anarchical. We have different states, we have different participants that interact, and each one of them interact in their own interests. There are certain agreements, but sometimes those agreements are broken. So you can expect anything, almost anything, to happen at any moment of time. So, given this situation, we need to explain it and we need to have a strong theoretical approach. So, when we talk about the politics of realism, we say that we have to base on the reality. What is the reality out there? Well, the reality is that each one of us have self-interest and we are usually going to act according to what is in our best interest. So, in other words, this approach is based on the ideas of Hobbes, who thinks that people are constantly fighting for power. Since we fighting for power, this means that our interaction is often is going to be violent. It's going to be based on the concept of power itself. Where if you want, for example, if you want to create a stable peace, you have to maintain a balance of power, which means that none of the participants should be too strong or too weak so that the other is going to attack him. Also, this approach, for example, talks about social Darwinism, which means that only the strongest nation is going to survive and to prosper in such a situation. So, like real politic, it's the politics of reality. What's the reality out there, right? So, and we're going to analyze this reality without any kind of illusion, any kind of expectation that all of a sudden people are going to behave better than they usually do. So, we're going to have a very realistic approach, and based on this, we're going to create our actions. On the other hand, we have a classical approach of idealism. Idealism says that, well, of course, we live in quite a violent, very like chaotic reality, but power is not the only concept that we may include. We have a greater variety of things that we may do in international politics. Like, for example, the international organization. The international organization, they are going to promote justice and cooperation between different participants so that um, some other ways of like deciding who's right and who's right, not only the power and violence could be used. These ideas are based on the ideas of Jean-Jacques Rousseau and his social contract, who was saying that for the well-being of everyone, we agree on a certain norms. And since these norms, at the end of the day, they benefit all of the participants, um, they are going to be accepted by everyone. So this is the idea of idealism. It says that yes, we live in a difficult world. Yes, like the power is very important, but there are also some other things that we can do, and we may try at least to create some kind of new mechanisms that are going to be used in international politics. But you may say, well, today this have changed a lot, right? So I've been talking about the classical realism, for example, that that believes that people are bad and that international politics is a continuous struggle for power. And like, for example, classical liberalism that um, has a more optimistic view of human nature, and also like it believes that there's a possibility of some kind of cooperation for the well-being of everyone. But obviously today, I'm sure you've heard, for example, about neoliberalism. Neoliberalism is going to stress that in today's international system, there is a huge interdependence through trade, through social exchanges, through scientific exchanges, etc., etc. And it is going to emphasize the use of law and the creation of international organizations to promote such cooperation between different members. And we also may talk about the neorealism um, that is going to stress, for example, once again, the importance. He's going to state that the politics is the struggle for power, um, because it's some kind of unregulated system, right? So it's a constant struggle for power that if we will regulate it, it's going to be a little bit different. But of course, we have much new approaches. Like, for example, we talk about, um, I know, feminism. Feminism is going to discuss the role of women in the world politics, and they're going to say that traditionally women will not participate in a lot in such a system, and it was a man-centered system. And since men tend to resolve conflict often through the use of violence, that's why violence was so common. Or we may talk about the economic theories that are going to talk about international political economy, that is going to focus on this interaction between politics and economics and how they affect each other. Or, well, in general, if we talk about some kind of postmodern theories, uh, uh, that they are going to argue, well, that the reality is very complex and often it's created by our discourse. So if it's a discourse about power, about violence, this is what is going to happen. But if it's a discourse about cooperation, some new terms are going to be appearing. Also, in other words, if we do not know something that it exists, we are not going to use it in international politics. And of course, well, to mention some other theories, we talk about the constructivism that is going to be like it's a postmodern theory, of course, that is going to argue that in such a system, um, basically what exists is what you believe to exist. So we want the nation states to exist. That's why the nation states are currently um, existing. If all of a sudden we would stop believing in this cause, they're just going to disintegrate like it happened to the Soviet Union. Another topic that I'm going to talk today is the levels of analysis, and basically it talks like how we are going to analyze a certain political situation. To any conflict that we have today, we may analyze it from a different level of analysis. It's like, to give you an example, if you look from far away, you see like the whole picture. If you come closer, you may see more details. If you come even closer, you may see some very small particular details. But when you see those particular details, you do not see like the picture as in general, like it happened when you were far away. So this is the basic idea behind the levels of analysis. When we talk about the system level of analysis, we see the situation from far. We see the situation in global. In such, we talk about like the global problems. We talk about the international norms. We talk about, for example, the balance of power in general on the continent or in the world. We talk about the global causes of the war, right? So we are at the system level analysis. We talk how the whole system is working, how like we have a whole interaction over here. But then we go down to look at more details. We talk about state level analysis. On this analysis, we are going to analyze the particular states. For example, this particular states, what type of governments do we have? What kind of economic situation do they have? What kind of economic interests do they have? We talk about such concepts as nationalism, as the local public opinion, how it's going to be affecting the situation, how it's going to be promoting, for example, I don't know, a certain type of decision against another one, how it's going um, to push the government towards certain decisions. And finally, on the lowest level, on the individual level, we're going to analyze the particular participants of global problems. We're going to look at the personality of particular leaders. So is like for example, if this leader is, I don't know, he is a dictator, or if he was democratically elected, what kind of preparation he has, what kind of level of education, what are his ideas, what is his perception of the world, what is his gender, for example, if it's a woman like Angela Merkel, or if it's a man like Donald Trump. So what is going to be, how this is going to be affecting the way they see the world and the kind of decisions that they're going to take, right? So when we talk about personality, I think Trump is a great example, right? So Trump is Trump. He's very impulsive. He's like a showman. He likes the attention. He likes scandal. So that's why many of his decisions, and that's why the politics of the United States is going to be influenced by the personality of the president. So that's why on the individual level, we are going to be analyzing the particular people. And finally, when we talk about power system in general for the world, we have three main power systems, and like the last one is like an extension of a tripolar system in reality. So the first system it's unipolar. This means that there is only one superpower that is going to be dominating the rest of them. This could be, for example, through a system of vassals, or like we have one big state and we have satellite states who are going to be influenced by the decision. We may give an example, for example, the United States recently that it was like the only superpower, and the rest of the countries are going to listen to their opinions in bigger or less degree. They're going to be influenced by the United States, or it could be through the conquest. In this case, we're going to have a world federal system when one country is going to absorb all other countries and they're going to control them. What are the benefits of such a system? Well, since we have a central authority, it is going to establish and enforce certain rules. Also, the central authority is going to settle the disputes. And it, on the other hand, is going to oppress any attempts of independence or greater autonomy of the subordinate units. So in such a system, it's quite predictable. There is a certain order, there are certain rules, and we know for sure who is going to enforce those rules. Well, the hegemonic superpower. The second type of power system is bipolar. This system existed during the Cold War, when we have only two large superpowers, and each one of them is going to have its satellite smaller powers that are going to be forming part of their bloc. In such a system, the acute hostility is inevitable. There is always going to be some tension between the superpowers because there are only two. Because if one is winning, the other one is losing. So they always have to compete against each other to maintain this balance between them. And each one is going to try to to steal the satellite states from the other one. Why? Because those small powers, they are going to give more power to one side or the other. And finally, tripolar or multipolar systems. In such a system, there is no one superpower. Instead, we have multiple powers. And for example, talking about the tripolar system, um, uh, each one of the participants is going to try to avoid that the other two players going to make some kind of union, because if the other players are going to unite together, they are going to outplay the first one. So as a result, there is a natural tendency to preserve the balance of power and to prevent that any side is going to be winning. So this same applies to the multipolar system. Once again, all of them try to negotiate between each other, but on the other hand, all of them try to prevent a creation of some kind of coalition, because this coalition is going to destroy the balance of power and eventually lead to creation of a different power system. So this system, multipolar, it's stable and unstable at the same time. It's stable because each one of them is trying to play his own card, and they balance each other. But on the other hand, theoretically, if two powers they create a union, they may move towards a bipolar, or unipolar system, whatever the case is going to be.